everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic, and it's time to talk about the first big AEW pay-per-view of 2022. Lots of big matches to recap on this one, including the two big men's and women's world title matches, as well as, of course, CM Punk versus MJF and Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson. So let's waste no further time and get straight to it, because this is what happened at AEW Revolution 2022. The first match of the pre-show was Leyla Hirsch versus Kris Statlander. And I've got to say, there were a few little hairy moments here, a few sloppy spots. I'm thinking, of course, of that Hurricane Rana off the apron to the outside, for example. And yeah, it wasn't the cleanest match, but it certainly told a story at least. A lot of that story revolved around Leyla Hirsch weakening the arm of Kris Statlander, but it wasn't the armbar that ended the match. Instead, Leyla took the heelish route, using a turnbuckle behind the referee's back to pick up the victory. After the match, Kris Statlander is recovering in the ring, and Leyla Hirsch, quite curiously, is staring straight at the weapon that she just used to illegally win the match. A strange decision there from Leyla Hirsch. But who should come down to the ring to check on her fellow babyface but Red Velvet, possibly setting up a future match between her and Leyla Hirsch. Next, Tony Schiavone takes to the ring and says he's got an interview for us with Kenny Omega. Whoa! Kenny's music plays, and instead of Omega, it's Don Callis. Boo, Don Callis, you sneaky man. Don puts over Adam Cole, saying he's definitely going to beat Adam Page later on and win the AEW World title. And hey, he thinks that's fantastic news. And he says that he thinks Adam Cole will make for a fantastic transitional champion because, of course, Kenny Omega will reclaim his title in due course. He leaves, everybody boos, and it's straight into the second match of the pre-show. QT Marshall versus Hook. QT cuts a promo on his way down to the ring saying, look, if you want to do something right, you have to do it yourself. But Hook outclasses QT early on, but then QT starts using some of his veteran wiles to get a few cheap shots in. QT takes control, and for the first time, Hook's kind of in danger. Possibly ever in his life. Marshall goes for the diamond cutter, but Hook avoids it and locks in Red Rum for the quick submission victory. Nice and simple, as it should be, and the Hook train keeps rolling on, baby. The final pre-show match is the House of Black, Malakai Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews taking on the team of Pac, Penta, Oscuro, and Erick, Redbeard. There's a fast pace to start off this match and an early face-off between Penta and Buddy. Buddy was trying to get the drop on Penta. Penta turned around and he was like, I see you there, pal, and they stared each other down. The two big men of the team face off in the middle of the ring with just lots of shoulder blocks, but Erick wins the exchange and decides to run wild on the outside, trucking over everyone. The heels dominate for a bit until Penta does a sick, like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater combo, chaining a few moves together and ending with a huge Canadian Destroyer on Buddy Matthews. Everyone hits big moves on each other, and we get another big man showdown between King and Erick, which ends with Brody adjusting Erick's attitude with a big Death Valley driver. You can't see him. Penta hits a sick package pile driver on Malakai Black on the apron, but Malakai Black is not the legal man, and Penta's been a silly boy. Rowan tags in and fights off Malakai and Matthews at the same time, but Black decides to mist him in the face, and that allows Brody King to slide into the ring and hit a big pile driver, or kind of an over-the-shoulder tombstone pile driver, for the win. The House of Black pick up the big victory. Now on to the first match of the main portion of the show. Chris Jericho versus Eddie Kingston. Straight away at the start, Eddie hits a huge German suplex and Jericho lands straight on his head, and he is totally out of it. The ref's checking on him, Eddie's looking confused, but then brutally goes after Chris on the outside. Jericho fights his way back into the match by targeting Eddie's orbital bone, which of course was previously injured, but Eddie pulls down the straps and we get a lot of chops exchanged back and forth, and even an exchange of eye pokes. Jericho hits a very unique spot, one that I can't remember the last time I saw, a vertical suplex off the apron to the outside. Back in the ring, Jericho dodges the back fist and shortly afterwards gives Eddie a nasty high-angle German suplex of his own. He then hits the lion salt, but Kingston kicks out. Jericho looks for the walls of Jericho and gets them locked in, but Eddie slowly and bravely makes the ropes to a huge crowd reaction. It goes without saying, but the crowd are very pro-Kingston here. Eddie comes back into the match now with a couple of Saito suplexes and connects with the back fist, but Jericho kicks out and shortly afterwards hits a code breaker, but then Eddie kicks out. Kingston fires up but eats another code breaker, with commentary pointing out that is targeting the orbital bone once again, and Jericho winds up for the Judas effect. Before he goes for it, he says, "Eddie, you'll never win the big one." He swings the elbow, but Eddie ducks and answers back with 2 back fists in a row. He doesn't go for the cover, however, instead applying a submission that honestly I'm unfamiliar with, but which Excalibur notifies us is the stretch plum. He wrenches on the arm, wrenches on the neck, and Chris Jericho taps out clean. Eddie can't believe it. It takes him a few moments to even realize that he's won the match. He's asking Aubrey, I won the match. And then when it dawns on him, he extends the hand and says to Jericho, "I respect you, Chris. You said you'd shake my hand. Now do it." And Jericho looks at Kingston and walks away. "Chris, you said you'd do it. What are you playing at?" Anyway, it's a huge win for Eddie Kingston. Obviously the biggest of his AEW career so far. And I can't wait to see what's next for him. And for Jericho as well. Interesting developments there. Next up, it's the 3-way tag title match between the champions, Jurassic Express, reDRagon, and those damn Young Bucks, who applaud Fish and O'Reilly into the ring. They seem to be on the same page. For now. The 2 heel teams do work together in the early stages, with Jungle Boy hitting a big dive early on onto all 4 opponents. A lot of the first half of this match, though, is Jungle Boy trying to fight off all 4 heels, and he dives for the hot tag at one stage, but Fish drags Luchasaurus off the apron, FTR style. It all starts to break down, though, when O'Reilly and Matt Jackson argue after one of them accidentally gets the other into a Jungle Boy roll-up for a near fall, and this allows Jungle Boy to finally get the hot tag, and Luchasaurus starts kicking ass. There's a bit of a choke slam party as Luchasaurus runs wild, and a big doomsday device as well with Jungle Boy's help. Later on, Matt accidentally super kicks Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly's not happy, and finally the 2 teams fully break down and start brawling with each other. Kyle O'Reilly gets a guillotine locked in on Luchasaurus, but Jungle Boy breaks it up with a casual shooting star press from the top rope. Just everyday wrestling, everybody. We see that all the time. Matt Jackson tries to use one of the tag title belts, but the ref stops him, so reDRagon nab it and smack Jungle Boy 1-2, but he somehow kicks out. The Bucks run wild on everyone and hit the BTE trigger on Jungle Boy, but Kyle O'Reilly breaks it up, and Matt Jackson is livid. The Bucks set up Jungle Boy for more bang for your buck, which Jungle Boy reverses with a superplex and a German suplex, which sounds silly, but if you saw the match, it makes sense. That's exactly what happened. Towards the end of the match, though, the Bucks are firmly in control. They try to use Brandon Cutler's spray can, but Jungle Boy avoids it, and he and Luchasaurus hit the double team finisher for the win. Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus retain the belt, and the crowd, needless to say, are very happy indeed. Next, we have the face of the Revolution ladder match. Christian Cage taking on Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks, Wardlow, Keith Lee, and Orange Cassidy. Cassidy gives the limpest of fist bumps to a fan in the front row on his way to the ring, and the fan's just like, which is fantastic. We get a showdown between the 3 big boys early on, but Orange Cassidy gets in the middle and dishes out his little kicks. He then avoids the inevitable attack and uses them all as a ladder. It doesn't quite work, but it's very inventive. Later on, Orange tries to climb an actual ladder and climbs so slowly. Well, I thought that at first, but then I thought, hey, it's probably about the pace of how any other wrestler climbs a ladder, honestly. That is foiled by Christian, who looks for the spear, but then Keith Lee does his very gifable pop-up on the apron and starts to take over the match. He even, at one point, uses Orange Cassidy as his very own personal melee weapon. Cassidy later does the Bubba Ray Dudley spot with the ladder around his neck, but he's lifted up with the ladder, so he skins the cat upwards onto the top of it and almost gets that brass ring. Christian spears Hobbs into a ladder shortly after, but then gets speared himself by Ricky Starks, who does so by leaping through the middle of a ladder in between them. Nice. We then get a big everyone climbs the ladder spot, and they fall one by one until it's just down to Wardlow and Hobbs, who tee off on each other and eventually fall simultaneously. We're back to square one. Keith Lee launches Orange Cassidy over the top rope, and he gets caught sort of on the outside, and then the 3 big lads brawl all the way up the ramp. Hobbs and Wardlow fight over a ladder, and they accidentally break it in half because they have big muscles. Hobbs and Keith fight over to the commentary table and both get knocked off the stage by Wardlow. They are both completely out of this match. Back in the ring, Ricky Starks climbs, and then Danhausen emerges from under the ring to curse him and kind of stop him, but he either missed his cue or Wardlow was in the ring too early for a later spot. It was a little bit awkward, but I got the point. Starks climbs again, but this time Wardlow leaps onto a ladder bridge in a single bound, like sort of Brock Lesnar style, and powerbombs Starks horrifically down onto the ladder bridge below. It looked nasty. I think Starks was okay. I don't know. Referees were checking on him afterwards, and obviously we all hope that he is. And with that, Wardlow is free to unlatch the brass ring, pull it down, and he has won the Face of the Revolution ladder match and will get in the future a TNT title shot. After the match, Tony Schiavone comes out onto the stage and announces a new big signing. It's none other than Shane Swerve Strickland. Huge reception from the crowd, of course, and he asks, whose house? It's Swerve's house, guys. Can't wait to see what he does, but there's no time to waste. We are straight into the next match, the TBS title match between the champion Jade Cargill and the challenger Ty Conti. Ty comes out and it's sort of Ty Conti Painmaker edition because she's got some special pay-per-view face paint. She's escorted to the ring by Anna Jay and -1, with whom she shares a lovely secret handshake. Very nice to see. Jade is played to the ring by blues guitarist Christone Kingfish Ingram, and she's got special pay-per-view attire as well. She's kind of dressed like, is it Melina or Katana from Mortal Kombat? I don't know, guys. I don't know my Mortal Kombat character. Let me know which one she's dressed as in the comment section down below, please. Jade grabs Ty early on for a big kiss for mind games, I guess, building off the kind of the build up to this match, but it's a bigger kiss than we're used to, which means more mind games, I think. Conti hits a big senton early on to the outside onto Smart Mark Sterling, and when the camera cuts to reveal who Ty is jumping onto, Jade isn't even in the frame, like she's way out of there. It looks as though Ty was like specifically targeting Mark Sterling on the outside. Jade pump kicks Anna Jay into the timekeeper's table, and Anna Jay later on uses a steel chair to give Ty a near fall. Ty is in control now and hits a return kiss for mind games before nailing her big DDT for a near fall. She goes for the Ty KO, but Jade counters with the Eye of the Storm, but Conti kicks out. Jade then heads up top where we don't usually see her and hits a surprisingly sick frog splash, but again it's only enough for 2. Conti then does something equally surprising, nailing a pile driver again for a near fall. And was it just me, or did commentary not really sell the shock of that? It was very impressive. Jade's like double her height and she nailed her with that pile driver. Ty goes up top and Jade knocks her head into the camera, the little camera on top of the ring post, and then nails the Jaded, her finisher, to retain the TBS title. They weren't messing about in this match. It was just big spot after big spot after big spot. Kind of a shortened run time compared to the other matches we've seen so far, but I thought it was really good. Unfortunately, though, the crowd were in a little bit of a lull after all the action we've just seen. Jade Cargill retains, and I don't know who she's going to lose to be honest. Next, it's the big one, the dog collar match between CM Punk and MJF. MJF tries to steal Punk's thunder early on, coming out to a little tease of Cult of Personality to rile up the crowd, but Punk trumps him with a big throwback. He comes out with the baggy shorts, the old AFI theme from Ring of Honor, and it's absolutely fantastic. Very early on, we get the spot of Punk choking MJF through the ropes, just like he himself was choked on this week's Dynamite. There's also a bit of clever chain contraption utilization, with Punk doing a bit of like old school bull rope sort of tactics, driving MJF repeatedly into the corner. I remember seeing like Dustin Rhodes doing that in Impact, and his dad probably did it, lots more times in older matches. MJF takes over, using the chain, busting Punk open and even biting at the wound on his head. He then gets a mic from ringside and says to Punk, "Tell them how you quit on me, just like you're going to quit on them right now." But Punk fights back, yanking MJF off the middle rope and whipping him with the chain, and at one point also injuring MJF's hand. MJF fights back with a chain-assisted sleeper and Punk fades, but he manages to hold on and stay in the match and does even the old Bret Hart turnbuckle backflippy sort of reversal, but it only gets 2. A go-to-sleep attempt is reversed into the Salt of the Earth armbar, but then Punk rolls him up for 2 and then gets the Anaconda Vice locked in, but then MJF rolls Punk up for 2 and then goes for the Heat Seeker on the apron, but Punk counters with a big spine buster. Nice sequence here. Punk then wraps the chain several times around his leg for a huge shining wizard that sends MJF out of the ring. He goes for another one of these on the outside, but MJF moves and Punk ends up kneeing the ring steps. They battle to the apron and MJF goes for a tombstone on the apron, but they do the upside down Undertaker reversal spot and Punk hits the tombstone but does further damage to his knee in the process. Thumbtacks get introduced into the match and both men tease falling in at one point or another. Punk goes up top and is attempting a Pepsi plunge into the thumbtacks, but MJF gets out of it and instead hits a superplex. It kind of falls short, but Punk certainly has some thumbtacks in his back. It's definitely not pleasant to take, or it looks unpleasant anyway. MJF can't put Punk away, however, and in desperation, he turns to the ramp and calls for Wardlow. And out Wardlow comes. MJF wants the Dynamite Diamond ring, but Wardlow looks in all of his pockets and he can't find it, which gives Punk plenty of time to recover, drag MJF towards him with the chain, hit the GTS, and MJF falls right into the tacks. Wardlow then finally, cheekily, finds the ring and smiles and just leaves it on the apron and walks away from the match to a huge pop. Wardlow seemingly has turned face and he is over. Punk puts on the Dynamite Diamond ring, decks MJF in the face, 1, 2, 3, and CM Punk has gained his revenge. Punk celebrates for quite a long time, and even at one point when he's on the turnbuckle, did I see a little belt motion there? Is he going for the AEW World Championship? Very interesting indeed. There's also a nice Bruiser Brody tribute, whipping the chain around his head wildly, and it's just a nice feel-good moment, albeit one with lots of blood and thumbtacks as well. The next match is the Women's World Title match between Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, and there's a new design for the title belt as well. I personally think it looks better. This is a hard spot to be in following that dog collar match, you have to say, but they give it their best shot. Britt is healing it up early on, with Jamie Hayter getting involved behind the referee's back, and Rebel as well at times. Thunder Rosa fights back bravely, but Britt is dominating the majority of the first half of this match. Britt even gets the glove, but Rosa cuts off her lockjaw attempt and hits a superplex and then brings her straight up into a swinging neck breaker and then a sliding clothesline. A nice combo, but it only gets 2. They have an exchange of slaps on their knees, but Britt catches one of the slaps and goes again for lockjaw, and there's an exchange of roll-up pinfall attempts, but neither woman can get the decisive advantage. Rosa heads up top, but Britt joins her and hits a nasty top rope air raid crash, but again, it's only good for 2. Rosa then hits a tombstone, quite a lot of them on this show, but Rebel distracts the referee before he sees the pinfall attempt. Thunder Rosa clocks Rebel, but almost then gets pinned off a sneaky roll-up from behind. Britt stomps Rosa onto the belt with the referee checking on Rebel out of sight, but again, Thunder Rosa kicks out in the nick of time. Britt then goes for lockjaw, but Thunder Rosa reverses into a lockjaw attempt of her own and then transitions into a chokehold. Britt taps out, but once again, Rebel distracts the referee. Thunder Rosa nails a Big E-style spear through the ropes to the floor and takes out Jamie Hayter, but when she gets back in the ring, Britt Baker is waiting and hits a big stomp, 1, 2, 3, and to the surprise of many, because I know a lot of people were predicting a title change here, Thunder Rosa loses and the champion is still Britt Baker. Once again, I thought this was a hard spot to follow and the crowd were quite dead for a big title match, but they really tried their best. They really gave it their all, and it's interesting to see what Britt Baker moves on to next now that she's still the champion. Next, it's Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson. And it's very back and forth to start this match, but Danielson starts to gain control, but then Moxley starts no-selling chops and the intensity ramps up. Danielson goes for a dive, but Moxley catches him on the outside, but instead of doing a move, they just start exchanging more strikes. It's worth emphasizing here that there are some really stiff shots in this match, and when they get back in the ring, both men are busted wide open. And I guess Moxley did say that he wouldn't align himself with anyone unless he'd bled with them first, and hey, there's certainly a lot of blood now. We get more stiff shots from Moxley, including a stiff lariat and a stiff back rake on the top rope, but Danielson counters into a huge back suplex, but it only gets 2. They exchange sleeper holds, and Moxley even gets an armbar locked in, but Bryan reverses it into the yes lock, and Moxley has to literally claw his way to the bottom rope. We then get an exchange of stiff, seated kicks to the face, and Moxley gets the bulldog choke locked in, but Bryan suplexes his way out, then hits the running knee, but it's only enough for Danielson to get 2. Moxley then takes some stomps to the head, and Bryan gets the triangle sleeper locked in with additional elbows. But Moxley fires up and bridges over for the 1-2-3, a clean pinfall, or was it? Because as he bridged over, his feet did land on the bottom rope, but then he got them off the rope, and the ref counted 3 anyway. So a slightly iffy finish, but generally a very brutal, very hard-hitting, and very good match. Danielson obviously is not happy about this result and argues with the referee, and he and Moxley continue to brawl after the bell. Who could possibly keep them apart? How about William Regal? Yes, to a huge ovation, William Regal walks down to the ring. He gets in and admonishes both men, with commentary really hyping up the fact that he was a key mentor to both of them earlier in their careers. Regal dishes out a huge slap to the face of Moxley and one to Danielson as well, and forces them to shake hands. And they do so. I don't know if this means they're aligned yet, but if they are, I think we all know who their boss is going to be. Very exciting developments indeed, and it's great to see William Regal back on our screens again. The penultimate match of the night is the 6-man tornado tag match pitting Darby Allin, Sting, and the TNT champion Sammy Guevara against Andrade, Matt Hardy, and Isaiah Cassidy. And even though tornado rules typically means there's just no tags, this one was an all-out, no DQ, hardcore brawl. We get one of Darby Allin's special home movies before his entrance. It's like a mock funeral for his opponents. Then he crashes a car into the set, and Sting shows up and sets it all on fire and says, "It's showtime." Whoa. Darby enters last and charges straight at Andrade, and it sparks a huge brawl all around the ringside area. Sting beats up Jose the assistant, and Darby puts a trash can over his head and hits a crazy dive to the outside. The faces are running absolutely wild, with Sammy hitting a big springboard cutter, but Andrade starts to get himself back into the match. Big double foot stomp on Darby Allin from the top rope, and it looks like the heels are now in control. Mark Quinn of Private Party tries to get involved on the outside, but Sammy throws him over the barricade, but then Isaiah Cassidy comes along and uses the barricade to hit Silly String. The fight spills into the crowd, where the Butcher and the Blade show up, and they join in as well, helping to turn the tide, and Isaiah and Sammy fight on top of part of the set near the entrance ramp, and Sammy hits a crazy Spanish fly through a table. It looked nasty. In trying to top that, Sting and Matt Hardy battle above an entranceway, while Darby lays Andrade on a stack of tables below, and then Sting is the one who hits the high spot, splashing Andrade through the stack of tables from the area above the entranceway in the crowd. You know what I mean? You'll see on the picture, but the video does it more justice, because this was gnarly, especially from a man of an advanced age as Sting is. It was terrifying and awesome in equal measure. Darby Allin and Matt Hardy end up back in the ring, with Darby hitting the Scorpion Death Drop on a chair, then scuttling up to the top rope and nailing the Coffin Drop on Matt Hardy, who's kind of still selling the previous spot, so Darby kind of misses, but it's enough for a breathless 3 count to a very, very fast-paced, high-octane match. And finally, the main event of the evening. Hangman Adam Page defending the AEW World title against Adam Cole. Cole has special Master Chief inspired entrance gear from Halo. He's ready to go and is very popular, of course, despite being the heel. On the other hand, Hangman Page, still very popular, but I definitely heard a smattering of boos during his introduction. The match has an even start with dueling chants. They head to the outside, and Page accidentally hits the ring post with the arm he uses for the buckshot lariat. Cole starts to dominate the match, but they head to the outside again, and Hangman hits a hard powerbomb on the ring apron and follows it up with a big, impressive moonsault to the outside. Back in the ring, Hangman goes for the buckshot lariat, but Cole rolls away to boos. Then later on, he counters a moonsault with a precision super kick. Very impressive indeed. There's a strike exchange between the two, but Cole slaps on a crossface, but Hangman gets out of it and hits a jumping tombstone. Another tombstone on this show. Still, they can't put each other away, so here come O'Reilly and Fish to distract Hangman, so Cole super kicks him in the back of the head and hits Panama Sunrise on the floor. He drags him back into the ring, but again, it's only good enough for a near fall. He goes for another Panama Sunrise, this one inside the ring, but Hangman fights it off, but reDRagon distracts the referee and Cole hits a low blow. Then Panama Sunrise, and then the boom. But it's only good enough for 2 still, guys. Hangman goes for the buckshot again, but misses and takes a load of super kicks. But then he collapses before Cole can hit the boom. So reDRagon decide enough is enough. They drag the timekeeper's table over to the apron, and Cole grabs Hangman, and then Hangman gets control and hits Deadeye, leaping off the apron and destroying the table below. The Dark Order come out to the ring to check on Hangman Page, and there's a big brawl with reDRagon clearing the ringside area and leaving the 2 men alone in the ring. Page finally hits the buckshot, but he's too slow to make the cover because of his sore arm, and on the stroke of 3, Cole gets the back of his hand on the bottom row. So, in a reversal of what happened to him on this week's Dynamite, Hangman ties Cole's arm to the rope and then hits him with various super kicks, but Cole fires back with one of his own, gets his hand free, and turns into another huge super kick from the champion. Page slides his knee pad down to definite boos from the crowd, it has to be said. He hits the boom and then the buckshot lariat and covers Cole. 1, 2, 3, and Hangman Adam Page is still the AEW World Champion. Now, this was a very intense main event, and people may have seen Hangman's actions, like the tying of Cole's arm to the rope, as maybe heelish or shades of grey, but after the match, Hangman certainly still seems to be a babyface. He goes over and shakes a limp Cole's hand as Cole lays prone on the canvas. And that is how we go off the air, with Hangman Adam Page celebrating his successful defense of the title. This was a monster show from AEW, very long indeed. It definitely suffered from lulls in the crowd here and there, but generally I think the action and the drama, moreover, was of a very high standard. That's what I think, but what do you think? Do let me know your thoughts and opinions in that comment section down below. And thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic. Take care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you very soon.